In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through the Chaos OS Obsessing Over the Customer, which is a framework that I like to think about and I'm bullish on in terms of just coolly understanding what it is that we're focusing on and just obsessing over the customer to solve their problems in the best possible way. And the reason why I'm showing you this is to show our builds real and raw, to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, what is working, what is not working, to solve where it hurts, to solve big messy problems within organizations in terms of ops and systems while incorporating software at the same time, and to call in visionaries, basically people that are on the same mission as us, and also just to build a cool network of cool people doing cool things as well. And how I'm actively obsessing over our customers is super important, and it's been the bedrock of every single thing and every single approach that I have taken in terms of just thinking through frameworks and processes that we can actively implement in just refining our processes, to just ask the question of saying, hey, how are we actively obsessing over the customer journey, and also from start to end, how can we refine this process? And I've broken this down into 5 simple steps as always, to say number one is dig deeper than the surface, just basically saying, hey, we're going to dig a lot deeper to truly understand at the core what the problems are, so that we can truly say, hey, we understand what their problems are and are constantly refining that. And why this matters is because most founders guess, I dig, meaning that I especially just want to take the approach of saying, hey, what is the true core issue that they're facing from a first principles perspective, and just keep hammering down on that. Yes, it may take time, and this is something that I am super bullish on, and saying, hey, I'm going to take the time to truly understand the core, what their problems are, and then just reasoning up from there, because most of the times you uncover a lot of things by simply just asking the right questions. And real pain's not obvious, and this is something that I've actively seen, that hey, a lot of people might not know what their pain is. That's where we come in and we say, hey, let's ask these line of questions to say, hey, we need to identify what the core issue is, so that we can better build a new solution that will tailor to their business model, and ultimately just help them build this system. And also it's in the details as well, to basically say, hey, the details are where all the hidden information is, and just actively just seeking that ultimately just unlocks a new level of awareness. And how I'm actively doing this is spending hours with planners or people in the wedding business and saying, hey, what are your ops nightmares? Just truly just getting to the core of what it is that we're actively solving. Because one of the things is, you don't want to go blind and saying, hey, we don't know what we're actively solving for, and we don't know why we're doing this. But just by solely just understanding at the core fundamental of what it is that you're solving, and then reasoning up from there, it could be saying, hey, this business has specific issues in terms of tracking, to saying, hey, they don't know their numbers. And why don't they know their numbers? Because each and every single day you track the process of how they're normally doing things, and that ultimately allows you to just reason up from there, and not say, hey, let's just build them a dashboard. But then you start understanding, hey, they might not need this specific dashboard right now, but they might need specific processes in order to say, hey, each and every single day you need to check XYZ, because those are the 3 pillars that run your business. And just solely just understanding this. And it's not just vendors, it's missed deadlines, budget leaks, client stress, to saying, hey, your 3 pillars could be your client stress, your budget leaks, saying, hey, you're spending so much money in specific areas when you should not, and just actively just building on that. And how we're also doing this is, we built a system that saved the planet 20 hours a week by killing those exact pains, saying, hey, we're focusing specifically on those pains, and how can we actively just build a better solution that we can refine into the future. And saying, hey, we understand what the 3 main things are, now let's solve those 3, but let's not get sidetracked in terms of saying, hey, there's 7 things that we think are important, but what are the 3 core issues that we need to solve within the system that we're building out? And saying, hey, let's just build these 3 core features, and then everything will follow from that. And the lesson that I've learned from this is, hey, pain points aren't problems, they're gold mines. Saying, hey, if you're solving for problems, then that's where the gold is. Ultimately, the way I view life and the way I see things is, hey, we just need to constantly just solve problems, because by solving problems, we're ultimately just creating value. And the value creation cycle, in my personal belief, is through solving problems. And each and every day is just asking, how can we solve better problems better, and how can we constantly just refine the process by asking deeper and meaningful questions that ultimately get to the core of what it is that we're building. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's one pain I've assumed but never confirmed? And a lot of the times that I found, a lot of assumptions are built on pains that are not actually pains, saying, hey, you have this specific pain within your business, but you may not realize that that pain is actually irrelevant to the other pains that you have. A lot of brick and mortar businesses that I've seen don't run like software companies, and there's specific principles that ultimately do work, and especially in this day and age where different models and saying, hey, subscription models may work in terms of just building out this business, may work and just by trying it out, but they don't want to try that out because they say, hey, our system works exactly how it is, and they think that, hey, their problem is they're not getting enough leads or they're not getting enough people through their business. But ultimately the problem that I've seen, at least, is they can't keep their team members happy, and they can't keep everything in sync solely because they don't have the right systems in place. And number two, which is built for them, not specifically for the trends, saying, hey, trends die, real solutions lost, saying, hey, what we are building is a custom solution that's not only just going to be here for tomorrow or the next day, but ultimately for the next 5-10 years, that we can constantly just refine and ultimately just make sure it is the bedrock of the company that we're working with. And I'm not chasing AI hype in specifically saying, hey, we're integrating AI where it actually makes sense on the front facing layer to do tasks that specifically need to be done by AI, and then on the back end we're still running code saying, hey, this core fundamental, which is code, we need to understand it and we have to have full control over it and just actively just build towards that. And I'm building what planners need, and also just businesses, business owners especially, to saying, hey, we building for them specifically to say, hey, we're not necessarily just going to follow trends for the sake of following them. If it makes sense, then we're going to plug it in. If it doesn't make sense in the long term as well, then we're not going to plug it in, because we don't want to give a solution that, hey, in a month or two's time we can't refine it and ultimately it serves no purpose. And how I'm actively doing this is building on planner feedback, so building that feedback loop, not necessarily on buzzwords, because some problems I've seen lost a long time and they're not just, hey, tomorrow's problem, they're universal, and a lot of people face this pain. And it's also just asking, saying, hey, how can we actively understand this problem so that we ultimately just build better systems? It's Airtable dashboards and make.com automations, because they work, saying, hey, we're going to use our automations and we're going to build Airtable dashboards for specific problems, but what we need to build for custom, we're just going to run custom solutions for. And every feature starts with, does this kill chaos? If not, we scrap it. So saying, hey, we're asking the questions of, hey, does this kill chaos, or does it solve your operational problems that you have within your business? If not, we probably scrape it and we leave it on the back burner. But if it does, then we say, hey, then we start ranking it on the system to say, hey, what priority level is this, and is it something that we need to solve right away, or is it something that we need to solve into the future, and just actively building towards that. And the lesson that I've learned from this is customer obsession beats tech obsession each and every single time, to say, hey, your customers' pain problems doesn't matter what tech stack you're using, as long as you understand what their problems are and you're actively solving for that, you're ultimately bringing value. And that is something that I always want to incorporate in what it is that we're building, to say, hey, we're just going to use customer feedback and obsession to say, hey, they're facing these specific problems. It doesn't matter what tech stack we're using or what development code we're using. It doesn't matter. We just need to obsess over the customer and just saying, hey, we need to solve their problems no matter what. And the grounding question I like to ask for this is, how am I building for my customer or for the hype? Am I building for the customer or am I building for the hype? And this is a tricky one, because one of the things is you want to distinguish which person or archetype you're building for. Are you only just building solely for your client avatar, or are you building around the client avatars that you may hear around you? By this I mean, like saying, hey, we see that, hey, AI is working specifically in this niche, it's working for these people, but those are front facing businesses. And then you realize that the people that you're working with and that you're connecting and building these solutions for aren't as front facing as that. They still rely heavily on data, and data powers a lot of businesses. And just solely saying, hey, data really needs to be accurate, and sometimes you need to say, hey, AI might not fit into this criteria perfectly because sometimes it may have inaccurate data if you don't test it and you implement the right systems in place. And this also just leads into the third point, which is listening hard. Feedback is fuel. Ultimately, just saying, hey, that feedback loop is one of the most important things. Customers don't just buy, they guide, meaning that they guide what they want. It's not just saying, hey, we want to buy XYZ just for the sake of it. It's ultimately solving their problem and just solely just understanding that. And their feedback sharpens Chaos OS. I am a big believer on feedback, on building feedback loops, like building systems specifically for feedback and just ranking them. Even if it's just saying, hey, whenever we're on call with the client, we're just gonna take AI and then we, as a front facing layer for that, and plug in and say, hey, these are all the reviews that we have, and we're just gonna find the keywords, or we're gonna find similar patterns in what the customers are saying, and then we're just gonna track those metrics to say, hey, this percentage of people are specifically saying, hey, the UI sucks, or this specific percentage of people saying, hey, they love this XYZ part of our product, and just constantly just refining that on the back burner. And also just saying, hey, how I'm actively doing this, like I said, post calls on tally.so, so saying, hey, what's breaking, I tweak same day to make sure that we also just have that speed in terms of tweaking what it is that we're building. And then the planner said, I need vendor alerts, so saying, hey, we built this in 48 hours. Just that speed is so crucial. Just ultimately just saying speed, 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 because ultimately the quicker you get the solution out, the quicker you can test it and ultimately see where it breaks, and that ultimately allows you to just refine the process. And the lesson that I've learned from here is listening isn't passive, it's active improvement. Saying, hey, we're just gonna constantly just listen, even if it's feedback that hurts our ego. We're just gonna constantly just listen to that, and use it as an anchor for us to constantly just refine the machine, refine what it is that we're building. And the one piece and the one thing that I've asked myself in terms of this is, what's one piece of feedback I've ignored that could level up my product? This could be anything, because most of the time I found that, hey, you may not want to hear that people say the specific part you spend so much time on sucks, but sometimes you need to hear that, and you need to just take accountability to say, hey, this sucks, and that's okay. Now, how can we do it better? It's just always constantly just having that mindset of pushing the needle forward and just asking those questions. How can you keep on moving forward? Because ultimately, that is the main thing. Just building cool solutions that ultimately just solve problems. I think that is the winner, or the cupcake specifically for me, in terms of what it is that we're building. And which ultimately leads into the fourth point, which is small wins, big fixes, big impact. Which, why this matters is, quick wins build trust. I'm not waiting for perfection, I'm delivering on value now. Specifically just saying, hey, we're just gonna roll this out quickly. We're not building it perfect in to be perfect in this current present moment in time, but in the future we're just gonna constantly just refine it until it's perfect. And then from now, we're just gonna make sure that we get it out to see, hey, does it fit our criteria of tests that we're gonna have to see if it's working or not, and just constantly just refining the machine. And how I'm doing it is, hey, we built an MVP of a software, saves 10 plus hours, which we're actively just saying, hey, we want to track all the metrics to say, hey, is this integrating well into your workflow? If not, how can we actively just refine the machine to make sure that it integrates well into their current workflow? And ultimately just tracking how many times or how many hours we're saving per week of them just helping, of using it. And this is one point that I have not actually implemented in this, which is actively just saying, hey, could you please record a video of yourself using this platform, and then ultimately from them using this platform, or the platform that we built for them, just take AI and then put the notes and say, hey, we want to get the keywords that they use while using this, and then just put that into a tracker, into an Airtable tracker, and see how that works. I think that would be super cool, and that's something that we could actively implement. Just an idea that I had right now. And also just shared a quick tip on Loom, saying, hey, here's how we synced vendors in 5 minutes. It's impact, not promises, just solely just focusing on impact, saying, hey, we want to ultimately just build a lot of impact. We want to be impact focused, and the lesson that I've learned is small wins stack big wins into loyalty. So it's saying, hey, loyalty is the number one thing that we're striving for, to say, hey, the small wins that we're getting today are ultimately just going to lead to people just being loyal to us and us being loyal to them. And the grounding question I like to ask here is, what's one quick win that I can deliver this week to ultimately just build trust? Ultimately, the number one thing that you can do for your personal self and for your personal brand is just to build trust and loyalty across customers and even people that you don't know, because ultimately trust, you never know where that's going to lead you into the future. And I'm super bullish on that, just saying, hey, we need to constantly just build trust, and that is the number one thing that we're striving for. And also, which leads into number 5, which is scaling impact from planners to industry, which is the ultimate goal, to saying, hey, what we're building here today is ultimately specifically for this niche, but the ultimate vision is to scale it up even further. And saying, hey, because we understand that chaos is in with all industries, and actively taking the approach of saying, hey, we're focusing in specifically on this industry so that we understand what it is that we're facing, so that we can scale it into different industries, is ultimately just going to be the foundation of how I'm actively just seeing things. And why this matters is customer obsession isn't a one and done, it scales. So saying, hey, it's not just in this industry, everyone in business faces chaos. It's just asking the questions of how can we solve that across different verticals, and saying, hey, what works for planners works for others. So saying, hey, this works for them, this should work for them. If not, we can just find a way to make sure that we understand that other niche or under industry a lot deeper, and just ultimately just tailor that for that. And how I'm doing this is starting with planners, built the system to adapt, coaching aviation, any chaos, that's specifically what we're targeting for. And the lesson I've learned is obsession over one customer, scale to many, just being super obsessive over one customer and solving their one specific pain point, and just ultimately just building the solution for them, with the grounding question of how can I scale what I'm learning from one customer to impact many, and ultimately just using this as a feedback loop to understand and refine our processes, so that we ultimately are just able to solve really big problems within organizations and also for our client avatar, and ultimately just to build the best chaos OS that we possibly can, and scale this into a machine, which I'm super bullish on. Now we're just gonna actively just scale this into a machine, and into the future this is only just gonna refine our mental models and how we think about things, and how we're constantly just pushing the needle in terms of innovation and iteration. Because I like to say, again, I don't know if I've said this many times, but I like to say iteration is the key to innovation. So just constantly just refining through processes, through also feedback as well, and just constantly just pushing the needle of what's possible. And I know that into the future, this is only just going to scale, and it's only going to be the bedrock of what it is that we're building. And I'm super excited to share this, and I'm super excited to share this. I wake up every morning and I'm excited to take this on and to solve really big problems and create value. And if you guys like this video and if you got any value from it, connect with me on X, on Instagram, and I'll see you guys in the next video.